You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Yesterday, we went through our first Cabral HouseCall of the weekend. Really great show. Love answering your questions each and every weekend. And today, it's going to be no different. We have about 6 to 8 of our community's questions. People that have written in over the past couple weeks. I get to answer those questions live on these house calls. Really no notes. Just a handful of questions right in front of me that my team takes from stephencabral.com/ask Cabral. That is the only place we can take questions from. I know, people often get upset online with saying like, how come you didn't answer my question on Instagram? How come you didn't answer my direct message on Facebook? Why didn't you answer my tweet? Why didn't you answer this? You have to understand that like I'm only one person. And that's the big thing is I can't keep up. Like that's the real truth from people. I mean, imagine getting 300 plus emails a day, getting another 100 direct messages from people wanting you to promote their product or recommend an essential oil or do this or do that, and then get questions on all of your posts. And so I'm just trying to do my best. That's it. And like, that's my honest answer. I wish I could do more. I really do. I wish I could go through every single question on whether it's YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and answer every one. I mean, I really do, but it's just not humanly possible. However, I do want to answer your questions. I honestly do. And the best place to ask them is stephencabral.com/ask Cabral. Now, those are the ones I'll answer on these weekend house calls. They'll take about 2-3 weeks for me to get to. But if you need immediate assistance, the best thing you could do is go to cabralsupportgroup.com. That's a free support group. And my team answers questions there as well as myself. Or also just email support@stephencabral.com. And we will answer any question you have within 48 hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 Eastern time. We're happy to do that. So I just like to let people know there's many different ways to get in touch with us. We will always answer your question, but social media is like a blur. It's coming from all angles over many different platforms. It's just kind of hard to even just see all the questions that come in. So anyway, that's my excuse. Hopefully it was good enough. And now let's get right into our house call. So the first question today is from Rose. Rose is asking, I have a niece and a great niece that suffers from eczema really bad. They have looked to traditional medicine and naturopath medicine to try and find an answer. They have went through the usual limitation diets, cleanses, and out of desperation, have even tried traditional drugs. At times, they both have some improvement, but it always flares up. My niece is a positive individual and will try almost anything, but noticed in the more recent months, she seems a bit depressed about it, and I think it's mostly because of her 5-year-old daughter suffering so bad. Any suggestions? I would pay for the testing for them. Listen to your podcast regularly. Thanks. Okay, so great question, Rose. Thank you for writing in. I always think it's fantastic. Everybody's trying to help other people. Always amazing, and they're trying to get those answers. So we're definitely going to be able to help you with this today. There's a couple things you can do. As always, go to stephencabral.com/podcasts. Okay. So why do I want you to do that? Well, there's a little search bar, and I want you to use this search bar to be able to search out your answer. And here's why. You're going to get a more immediate answer. It might take me 3 weeks to get to your question as you write in at Ask Cabral. But if you go to stephencabral.com/podcasts, you'll be able to type in eczema right there. And as you type it in, it will show you all the previous podcasts that I've answered people's questions on this topic. And I just want to let you know they can get even more in depth there. But today, I want to answer your question. That's what I'm going to do right now. We get even more results there too. Okay, so let's go through your question. You want to get started. You've tried things in the past. Eczema, like psoriasis, is just a pain, to deal with. So people are looking at, why is this flaring up? Why is that flaring up? I'll tell you right now, I work with a lot of children with this. Some it clears up instantly. We're talking, what's instantly? Within 3 to 6 weeks. And some is a little bit more of a challenge. So is life. I mean, that's how it happens, right? Some clear up instantly, some it takes a little bit longer. And the protocol doesn't really change, but it's the food selection that does. So for some people, they get really great benefit by using certain herbs. But then in some children, they have a sensitivity to those herbs because herbs are plants and they contain lectins. So even though they can be very beneficial, well, some kids can actually react to them. So here's the thing. You always have to start with a standard protocol. That's what a lot of people lose track of. So they have eczema, they have psoriasis, and like, oh, it didn't work. Well, so you don't know if it worked or not. So you have to follow it for 3 to 6 weeks minimum. If it isn't working, I mean, you are getting flare-ups. It worked. It told you that this specific protocol, you got more of a flare-up. Well, you have a sensitivity now. Now you know that to these specific herbs, to these specific things. Yes, they're helping to detox. Yes, they're helping to clean out your body. But what are they also doing? They're also causing a food sensitivity. Remember, herbs are plants. Plants are food. That's a food sensitivity. So here's the thing. This is what I recommend. Every child, every adult that comes to me with a skin-based condition, name your skin condition because there's all sorts of different names. So name it whatever you want, rosacea, psoriasis, eczema, contact dermatitis, whatever you'd like. I want you to run an organic acids test. That's my first test. It's a simple urine test. Any child can run it. Any adult can run it. You simply wake up, urinate just a little bit into this plastic cup. You mail that plastic cup with a prepaid envelope right to the lab. The lab results come to us. I read your results personally. I talk it over with my health coach, and they talk with you for 30 minutes implementing a plan and also what your results mean. It's really nice. It's simple. Okay. So I want you to run an organic acids test, and then I want you to run a food sensitivity test if you can. And that again is run for children and run for adults. You will then be able to see what foods are sensitive. What are they sensitive to from an IgG perspective? Now, this means these are the foods that they want to eliminate because they don't even know that those are causing flare-ups. Now, the IgE ones, they might have eggs, common food sensitivity for skin issues. They eat the eggs, all of a sudden, boom, they get a flare-up. Well, we know eggs are an IgE now sensitivity. We'll do the IgG test to find out the hidden ones. Run the organic acid test. If you have the funds, then I would run the food sensitivity test as well. I hope that helps. Thank you, Rose, for writing in. Lindsay is up next. Lindsay's writing in. Sorry, one more thing. I have to go back to Rose. I'll do this often, jump back and forth. Rose, the reason why I'm recommending the organic acid test, I want to qualify that, is because most people with skin issues have gut-based issues. They have some type of bacterial overgrowth, some type of yeast overgrowth, some type of intestinal permeability. The bacteria, the yeast, the foods, the proteins are getting into their bloodstream. Liver can't handle it. Kidneys overloaded, pushes it through the skin, and we see a skin-based reaction or a Th1, Th2-based immune imbalance. So hopefully that helps. All right. Lindsay's up next. Lindsay's asking, hi, after a recent blood test, it showed I had estrogen dominance due to excessive amounts of estrogen and inadequate progesterone. I have high androgens with reduced DHEA, optimal cortisol rhythm, adequate cortisone, and melatonin. I've decided to start on DHEA, ID3, and progesterone cream, but seem to have side effects, moodiness, tires, low libido, spots in the neck, etc. So after 2 months, I want to stop. Is there anything I can do to help the progesterone get back to a normal rhythm without the hormones? I've had 2 children, spent many years before them on birth control. I don't use it now, and the main reason for the hormone testing was I have low libido. Healthy, exercise daily, eat well. Thanks, Dr. Cabral, for your insight. I share your podcast with everyone, even my boss at work yesterday. Nice. Thank you, Lindsay. Really appreciate that. So here's the deal. Functional medicine is functional medicine, but it can get a little bit, there are levels to this, okay? So that's why I know a lot of doctors right now are using hormones, calling themselves integrative doctors. And again, I never put down anyone in the health profession because as practitioners, we are doing our very best to help our patients and wellness clients, the very best of our ability. I don't know a health practitioner that's ever trying to hurt someone or isn't doing their very best. And for the most part, I know all the health practitioners I've worked with spend hours per day outside of their normal, work hours, answering emails and telephone call, like all these things. So everyone's trying to help. But here's the thing. I believe you've been given some bad advice. And the reason is this. If you have estrogen dominance, you don't really want to use DHEA. And the reason you don't want to use DHEA is that if you understand the steroidal hormone pathway, DHEA can't flow over to progesterone and it can't flow over to cortisol. What it can do is it can balance those. So don't get me wrong. It has an effect. It has an effect. It can, yes. But what it does is it can flow downhill to androstenedione, to testosterone, and to estradiol. And estradiol could then become estriol if so desired, but that's a minor, insignificant, although very protective form of estrogen. Here's the issue. we don't want to necessarily be supplementing with DHEA right yet. What we want to do, this is pretty complicated. So I'm going to explain it as best as I can. So here's the deal. Even though you had normal cortisol, you had low progesterone and low DHEA. So now what you're really finding is the very bottom of your steroidal hormones is cortisol and estrogen. Okay, that's where they bottom out. They can't go any further. So now we're looking at normal at the bottom, but low at the top. And again, this gets complicated. High at the bottom, low at the top. That means you've depleted your progesterone because it can become cortisol. You've depleted your DHEA because it can become estrogen if the call is there. My issue is this. You still have to calm the sympathetic nervous system, calm the HPA axis, which is causing the output of cortisol and stealing from your progesterone. So I know that this doesn't make sense on the surface level, because if you only look at a lab, all you can do is treat the lab numbers. You have to treat the person. So here's the deal. You still are overactive sympathetic nervous system, because if you weren't, you would have normal DHEA and normal progesterone, because you wouldn't be stealing so much to make cortisol. The problem is your hormonal bucket is low overall. And so if you have low hormones overall, well, you're still going to shift to what your body needs to survive, and that's cortisol. So now you're just showing up as normal cortisol. But keep in mind, technically, relatively speaking, that's high cortisol as opposed to DHEA, which you're showing low, and as opposed to progesterone. Now, if you had normal cortisol, normal progesterone, and normal DHEA, well, you'd say no. Then there's really no fight or flight. There is no sympathetic nervous system dominance. There's no HPA axis dysfunction, because the hormones above them are fine, which means there isn't actually an exaggerated call for cortisol. I know that sounds complicated, but if you can kind of break that down, what I'm telling you to do is still work on calming the sympathetic nervous system, whether it's through something like Adrenal Support Complete Care, HPA Adapt, using magnesium, and those types of specific products. If possible, what I would do is I would work with one of my health coaches, or I would run our true thyroid hormone adrenal-based test, or at least just the adrenal hormone test. Then I will review your actual labs, give you my recommendations as part of a full protocol, and then hopefully we'll get you the results that you want. Because the truth is, we work with this every single week in our practice. So hopefully that got you started at least. All right, Cynthia is up next. Hi, Stephen. So blessed to listen to your podcast daily. It's the first thing I do when I wake up. I'm 50 years old, have had low energy most of my life, never feel great, often bloated, and can have brain fog often. However, other than some sugar, I have a fairly healthy diet, work out of the gym twice a week, and maybe fit in yoga once a week. 10 years ago, I suffered from IC and general inflammation. 8 months ago, my left SI joint twisted, and I currently have hip bursitis. I'm an ectomorph with thinning hair and nails. Recently had food sensitivity test and found out I'm sensitive to dairy, nuts, and some seafood. Also suffer from allergies, pet dander, pollen, dust mites. I was taking twice weekly shots for allergies, perimenopausal, and let's see what else. Traveling, sometimes get traveler's diarrhea, sensitive by nature, social anxiety, prone to sadness from time to time. Recently started using your daily nutritional support powder and CBD oil when necessary. Thank you for everything you do. Truly grateful. Heading over to leave a review. Most sincerely, Cynthia. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the review. Anybody who leaves me a review on iTunes, I read every single one. It is something that I take great pride in. The pride that I take is being able to give back, actually feel like I'm making some type of difference in the world. I think that we all want that. It's something that I do crave. Not from an ego perspective, but just really from a greater picture. Like, is what I'm doing with my life matter? Money doesn't mean anything to me. Like, having my name on anything doesn't mean anything to me. When I see someone leave a review that says, you answered my question, you helped me on the path, any one of those things, I just really appreciate that. So thank you for the reviews. Let me answer your question now. So you're suffering from a couple things, I believe. One is a gut-based issue. The gut-based issue leading to food sensitivities, leading to inflammation, leading to allergies, leading to an overactive Th2 immune system. So the Th2 immune system is kind of chronic inflammation, chronic feeling like blah, allergies, histamine, sensitivity, sensitive to everything. And then there's the hormone issues. So you're perimenopausal, you still have some menstrual-based cycles. So what we're looking at is like, how do we balance the body in a very sensitive person? I like to keep things simple at this point, right? Really, really simple. I want you to do a 21-day Dr. Cabral detox. That's my recommendation. It costs less than 3 weeks of food. That's why I can feel really comfortable recommending it to you. I want you to be able to really massively detox the inflammation. I want you to reset your body, and then I want you to let me know how you feel after 21 days. Because if you already start to feel better, well, you know that you don't need to over-supplement, that you don't need to start switching to all these different hormones, that you don't need to do all of these things. So what I want you to do is this. Join CabralSupportGroup.com. It's a free Facebook group. You can run the organic acids test first, and you can run the hair tissue mineral analysis if you're able to. I mean, again, I know everybody can't afford the labs. I understand that. And I also want to give you advice, even if you can't afford to run them. So I want you to run the organic acids test and the hair tissue mineral analysis if possible. Organic acid test will show you your vitamin levels, as well as candida, bacterial gut-based function, mitochondrial function, neurotransmitters. And then I want you to run the hair tissue mineral analysis in terms of your nervous system. And I want to look at heavy metals. Okay, all of these things matter. And again, if you can't do that, well, then I want you to run the Dr. Cabral detox. And after you do the 21-day Dr. Cabral detox, after you run those labs, or just go right into it, is then afterwards we'll help you after that in the group. So you might need to add in 1 activated B complex a day to give you a little boost in both energy and mood. And we'll do something light in the morning, like the shake that you're doing right now to flush your body. Okay? And during the winter, we'll recommend the Wake Light or just a 10,000 lux lumen light. So in the morning, we get through some of that seasonal affective disorder. And then maybe we get you into some hatha yoga and some rebounding maybe first thing in the morning too, or after you take a shower, just to kind of get the blood pumping. So all of these little things, they add up and they make a huge difference in people's lives. Okay, thank you once again, Cynthia. Jamie's up next. Hi, Dr. Cabral. Loving your podcast. It's my daily dose of healing inspirations. I've had migratory chronic pain for nearly 2 years, starting the right shoulder, then moved to the back, the hamstrings, the left hip. I've done every test under the sun, and I have not been diagnosed with any conditions. I've tried all sorts of different diets. I'm ad-libbing right now. Everyone can read this question in full at StephenCabral.com/597. That's where you can also get all of the links today, all of the product recommendations, everything that you can imagine is at that link today. We make it easy. So Jamie goes on to say, I have high mercury, and I'm currently chelating with DMPS. I've had 3 rounds so far. No improvements, but no detox symptoms either, which is good. I'm using Quicksilver Binder, can still surf, which keeps me sane. I meditate, use sauna, manage stress, best of my ability. Do you think mercury will be the answer? Do I just need to trust the process, give it more time? Integrative doctor says 6 sessions and he will retest. Was hoping to see improvement already. Might take longer. Appreciate any advice. So I'll just tell you exactly how I help people with high mercury, high aluminum, high arsenic, high lead, high all sorts of different heavy metals and toxins. All right. Again, I keep things simple. I'm looking at short-term versus long-term. Short-term, I would use what's called the heavy metal protocol that we have on our website. It's not expensive. It's something that you just do for 6 weeks. The entire 6 weeks is included, and I give you the way that I specifically do it based on research. Very simple. You go to StephenCabral.com/store, or better yet, just go to our podcast page today. StephenCabral.com/597. That will get you every link that you need today. The heavy metal detox, it's under $100. It lasts 6 weeks. This is scientifically formulated. You know I don't believe in just one company. I take the best of the best, okay? We've got one by Nutribiotic. We've got one by Desang. We've got one by Herb Farm, and we have one by our Equilibrium Nutrition, which is the biofilm disruptor. Again, sometimes chelation doesn't work if you're not able to kind of pull apart that biofilm. That's what we use the natural proteases, the natural enzymes to do that. So I like a more natural approach. You know, there are many approaches. It's not just one approach. I like the natural approach because it binds to these heavy metals such as mercury, aluminum, lead, and it's been proven to remove 90 to 93% of these heavy metals within 6 weeks. So of course you could do that, but I also want your liver to function better. So I usually recommend the Dr. Cabral Detox, 21 days. Now, if you can do the infrared sauna and if you can do rebounding or some type of self-massage, that's going to help tremendously as well because you want to move that lymphatic system. You want to sweat. You want to drink plenty of water. You want to just flush your body. You know, flush your body, bind up those metals, get them right out of your body, and then continue on with a daily nutritional support shake or the daily activated multi. And the reason is the multi that I have, the daily nutritional support shake as well, also contains minerals because you want to start putting more minerals back in your body after whether you do a natural chelation or a more of the IV-based one that you might be opting for right now. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. It was a really good question. That's exactly what I would do. All right, Simone is up next. She wrote in, about a week before my menstrual cycle starts, my appetite becomes absolutely insatiable. I crave all the bad carbs, pastries, fries, etc. and can just never get enough. Is there anything that I can do to curb these cravings? I know that consuming too much junk food, even if I've been eating healthy for the rest of the month, isn't good for me. Yes, Simone, this is a common question. It is a symptom of a underlying root cause, and that root cause, or one of those at least, would be called estrogen dominance. We talk about this quite a bit on the Cabral concept. What I would like you to do is go to stevencabral.com/podcast and type in estrogen dominance. You will hear all about estrogen dominance. I even gave you a little bit about it earlier today in the podcast. I spoke about it. So what do we need to do? Well, and then I always give you ideal world. I know that, we don't always live in an ideal world. I understand that. Again, I work with thousands of people, and so I get to see it, from every perspective known to man. But if I were in your shoes and you're able to, I would run a adrenal and hormone lab panel. Now, if it's possible to run the thyroid adrenal hormone panel, sometimes called the weight loss panel, you'll see your thyroid as well. But you have to run it when the cravings are high. So I want you to run it that week or so before, maybe 5 days before you get your period, before day one of menstruation happens. And that will tell you your level of estrogen dominance, or if cortisol is up, or any one of these things, because it can happen. And then literally what happens is now we know. So we're not guessing. We test. I review your results. My health coach gives you the plan that my health coach and I came up with. You implement it. You start to feel better. And that's it. And so that's the easiest way to do it. That's what I recommend. Hopefully that helps. Okay. Rebecca is up next, and she is asking, hello, I'd love to know your thoughts about iridology. Is it true? Does it work? Many raw vegans claim that their eyes have changed colors after starting raw veganism. I always look at things with a healthy skepticism, and I'd really like to know if there's any science behind it. Thank you for all you do. I'm really looking forward to your upcoming book. I forgot to add this to the question about iridology. I've had endoscopy, showed I have gastritis, biopsies, showed no pylori, no other pathogens, only a small hiatal hernia. You always talk about peeling back the layers and asking why. Where would I go to find the answers to this question? Why do I have gastritis? I did your 7-day detox, and for the first time in almost a year, I was reminded what it felt like to eat and not have any negative residual GI issues. This was an amazing experience for me, and I plan on doing another 7-day detox. I'm 27 years old, never done a formal detox till yours. Could it be my toxic load is heavy? What else have you seen be the root cause of gastritis? H. pylori, thanks a million. Okay, so Rebecca, kind of a challenge to answer this issue, right? Without me seeing any of your labs, but I can do it. I'm up for the challenge. So here's the deal. We have two questions, right? So let's answer the iridology first. I do believe in iridology. So for those who don't know what iridology is, it's the science of looking at the eye and how the eye is made up of the whole of the body. Anyone who wants to know more about iridology, you know what? It's been about 600 podcasts. I myself don't even know if I've done a podcast on iridology. So I'm going to use my own advice, and I'm going to go to my podcast page, stevencabral.com/podcast, and look up iridology. Okay, so it doesn't look like I've done a podcast on iridology. So why don't I put that in my notes? We should do a podcast on iridology. So Dr. Bernard Jensen, amazing physician. And I've also met his daughter as well, who's carrying on his work. I love his books. I recommend Dr. Jensen's books all the time on my Friday reviews. The Chemistry of Man is a fantastic one. So many great books. So I studied his work specifically. So just as a little aside, this can be our last question for the day. But I work with so many naturopathic doctoral students, whether they're at Southwest, whether they're at Bastyr, Bridgeport, and I get to work with them. I get to mentor them to say, here's the deal. Like, you're learning so much amazing things at school, but I need you to also study the traditional naturopathy, the traditional naturopathic ways as well. It's great because you're looking at it from a functional medicine perspective. Don't forget all the other things that were used. Don't forget the truer, deeper balancing things in the body. Now, here's the thing about iridology. You could have an issue with your colon. You could have an issue with your heart, and it doesn't show up in the eyes. So that's why it doesn't work for everyone. And so when I actually work with someone, I literally have about a 15-point system that I use. And they're all different modalities. So people say, well, how do you practice medicine? What is naturopathy? How are you a naturopathic doctor? Well, I don't even know how to qualify it because I'm using Ayurveda. I'm using traditional Chinese medicine. I'm using Pulse if it's in my office. I'm using iridology through Skype and in person. I'm using the skin, the facial diagnosis, the tongue diagnosis over Skype with people. Because only about half my practice is in person. The other half is over Skype. through people all over the world. I mean, I've worked with people in Iceland. I've worked with people in Argentina. Just last week, I was working with people in Canada. Where else was I working with someone? I was working with someone in Puerto Rico. I was working with someone, well, that was 2 weeks ago in Pakistan, like literally all over the world. Next week is in Russia. So like I get to work with people all through this little thing we called Skype video. So you can do all of those things and you can literally just work that way. So it's one of my points. That's what I'm trying to say is if your nails look fine, well, it still doesn't mean you don't have digestive issues, but if your nails aren't fine and it looks like there's fungal overgrowth, well, that's a good indicator. If you have poor thyroid function on the iridology, so I'm looking at someone's iris. The iris is the color part of your eye. And I see an actual dark mark or a white haze in the specific part of your eye that matches up with your thyroid. I'm saying, oh, okay, well, I have lab testing that's off. I have the iridology, I have the eye marker that's off. I've got low body temperature, a 97.2 body temperature that points to low metabolic rate. I've got a missing last third of the eyebrow that could be low thyroid as well. So I've thinning of hair. So I'm saying to myself, how many more points do I need to know that this person has low thyroid, even if they only have a what we call normal TSH? It's because TSH is not enough. It's only one marker. We didn't test their T3. We didn't test their free T3 or free T4. So that's what I can say to them. Listen, you have all these markers. Here's the thing we can do. We can start to rebalance your thyroid, or we can lab test at a deeper level. Your choice. If funds aren't an issue, run the comprehensive thyroid or run the thyroid adrenal hormone test if you have the ability to. If you don't, okay, that's okay. Let's start doing the daily nutritional support every morning. Let's add 2 capsules at breakfast, 2 at dinner of the daily thyroid support. Let's start to use the greens powder. Let's start to refortify that body. Let's try to calm down that sympathetic nervous system dominance from meditation, relaxation. Let's use lifestyle. Let's use supplements. Let's use food. Let's use everything. Why just pick one thing? Why pick one thing? Let's use everything. Okay? So I hope that answered your question. I know there was more to it. Let's see if I can get in this last part as well. The 7-day detox. Why did you feel so great on the 7-day Dr. Cabral detox? Because you started to remove foods that you were sensitive to. Bottom line, you lowered your toxic body burden or your total body burden. You allowed your body to have to not deal with as much inflammation, to lower and level out your blood sugar level. So what can I recommend? Well, sure, you could do another 7-day Dr. Cabral detox, so the 14 to the 21 day for even more results. But you could also start living it. You could do your daily nutritional support shake for breakfast every morning. You could do a vegan-based lunch. You could have a mid-afternoon snack, whether it's another smoothie or a bowl of berries or something like that. You could something light. And then you could have a nice, whether it's paleo-style, vegetarian lunch, Mediterranean, or vegan dinner. And then you're living the Dr. Cabral detox. No, you're not taking the extra capsules, but you're living it. And that's how we maintain. So do the Dr. Cabral detox, but then start to live the lifestyle. You can still do 1 or 2 cheat meals a week like I do and just, mass consume your favorite food at one meal, get it out of your system, then get right back on track. You can still live like a so-called normal human being, but you have to do the things that are going to get you well. My opinion, if you can, you run the lab test, you run the food sensitivity test, the organic acid test, the hormone test, whatever you need to do, run them if you can. And then if not, just do the Dr. Cabral detox, which costs less than a week of food, and then get right into the maintenance-based plan. Hopefully that helped with all your questions this week. Really appreciate each and every one of your listens. Thank you so much. Looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow on our Motivation and Mindset Monday. Don't miss it. Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only 2 ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to stephencabral.com/rainbarrel.